Crystalluria. Whatever that means. It's the title of a story by Ezekiel Kralin, who wrote email correspondence from November 2nd to November 8th. Subject, someone left this sign behind, which says, $32 away from my goal, a hotel room, TY for being kind, and a peace symbol. It was left on the corner of my block this morning, leaning sideways against my building. I wonder what that person's story is. I wonder what everyone's story is, but that would take a quantum computer of unimaginable sophistication to mash it all together and come up with the greatest horror story ever told, mine included. Is Brindlekin Tales a horror story? It very much is, I'd say, at least in part. Though that does not exclude a possible, albeit unlikely, happy resolution, nor does it ignore the many brilliant, inspiring, and hopeful mini-tales woven throughout. Life is a mixed bag. Stick your hand in at your own risk, or your head, if you be so foolish, and consider yourself inordinately lucky if all you lose is a finger or two when you pull your hand out. Well, even if you lose an entire hand, or worse, maybe what you've accomplished that cost you such a loss is greater than the thumbs of all parts. Conclusion. I'll stick with the positive outlooks on sapient existence, thank you very much. And Frank leads the way. Even a gas chamber was no match for the flame of hope in her heart. That is stunning. People forget. The human race owes her big time. I don't even know if what I just wrote is maudlin or not. I guess it's up to each of my readers to decide. P.S. I recently found an empty plastic container to replace my old piss jar, which has accumulated a thick layer of Crystalluria over the years and stinks to high heaven whenever the lid is removed, so that's something to celebrate. This new bottle is twice as high and wide, so it will last almost a week before I need to empty it. I hate ambling down a brightly lit hallway in the wee hours, pun intended, simply because I have to urinate. Passing by all those doors in the dead of night, behind which are strangers, always strangers. God bless the little doggies of this world, for they are never that. P.P.S. Oh, and I just sent my latest tale to be read over the airwaves this Friday to the magnanimous Marshall McGee. Kindness marches on. Someone left this sign behind. Watson wrote, one thing humans are good for, so when they do it right, pampering and protecting animals. One thing humans are good for when they do it right, pampering and protecting animals. So I replied, oh, there are plenty of saving graces in the human struggle, but those who are kind to innocent creatures are at the top of my list. Look how Lucky and Flacco have transformed my world for the better. How could one not fall head over heels for those pups? Watson wrote, it's kind of your trademark. You flirt with the maudlin, but then administer a brazenly acerbic corrective, occasionally drawing blood. So I replied, oof, can't deny it, only pry it. Perhaps I should officially trademark it. No one can flirt with the maudlin except for yours truly, or if I give signed permission. I'd never run out of material under such a brazen decree. Kind of like my tale, The Future Belongs to Moi, wherein I become a celebrated author and sometimes painter, so financially powerful I actually ban any other artist from using a rainbow in their work, and imply that I even ordered a special chemical to be sprayed in the air or injected into the water, that no one sees any real rainbow in the sky. I'm using how, since I composed that tale, right-wingers have been banning the rainbow all over the place, something which I never foresaw, but I guess intuited. Then there's an essay I wrote preceding that Flagitious flagitious parable by years called Down with the Rainbow Flag, wherein I declare its unoriginality and lack of a true expression of our LGBT struggles for equality. So perhaps that essay was presaging my own later prophecy, though now we're dipping into the ocean of the unconscious to net some tasty fish regarding the source of visionary talent. Alas, the waters are too murky to dredge up any decisive conclusion of a Delphic nature. Reply hazy, try again, says the fortune-telling 8-ball, but I still wonder to this day, why isn't this vicariously Apollonian pilgrim mentioned anywhere in the great works of Nostradamus, a Gordian knot that may never be unraveled, for unlike Alexander, I'd never dream of slicing it apart with a sword as a workable solution to my dilemma, as blunt and crude as a lobotomy. At any rate, I'm fantasizing silly notions to shift my psyche away from dark thoughts. I just got my free internet debacle resolved with a phone call and finally filled out my Medi-Cal renewal form and mailed it off directly from the local post office. That's a relief. Now I'm going to fix me a banana smoothie and relax for an hour or so, watching a few episodes from Season 4 of Disenchantment, Matt Groening's latest animated series. May your day be lovely, Watson. Subject, Deontay's chair, 7-second video. Caption to a brief video of a homeless fellow pushing himself around in a cushy swivel chair. Young homeless fellow, name of Deontay, recently showed up on my block, taking refuge in the ATM alcove below my window. However, the alcove has since been boarded up, so all the indigents can no longer meet up and hang out there. Yet Deontay lingers on. He found a cushioned swivel office chair 2 weeks ago and has since embellished it with comfy bedding. Here you see him settling in for the night. I've also attached a picture to this missive showing him all snug and cozy. Funny thing, though, when I opened the front gate to take this photo, there was Deke talking with him, then turned away and walked up Market Street toward the Castro. I don't think he saw me, as I had only opened the gate a crack and peeked out to see if Deontay was still tucked in, because I didn't want to upset him by seeing me with a camera. Or maybe Deke glimpsed me from the corner of his eye, so dashed away. I returned upstairs for a few minutes before attempting another shot, which result you now have. I don't want to mull over why Deke was there, or if he plans to call up to my window tonight or any time soon. He needs to stay away, and I think he knows it. I did hear the pups bark a bit before returning downstairs, so looked out the window to see them situated quite a ways up the block. It was dark, so I only saw silhouettes, though I certainly could spot one curly tail a-wagging. I don't think they stayed there very long, maybe 10 minutes. At any rate, I then stepped back outside to discover Deontay covered up once more and no Deke nearby. Subject, just woke up, looked out my window, and there was Deke pushing an overloaded shopping cart with the pups happily following behind. They look good. I wish I could have taken a picture, but it happened too fast. I hear their little barks from afar now, somewhere on Castro Street. My heart is crushed. I soar on wings. It's a lovely Sunday morning. Then I sat back down by my workstation to discover an email from Frances Leyland about a message I posted yesterday to the announcement list. It was a simple thanks, Zeke, like she emailed me one time before regarding a similar hopeful post of mine. So I responded with a single heart emoji, then watched a video waiting for me from last night that YouTube automatically loaded about animals being freed for the first time. The video I played preceding that, by the way, was actually Marshall's narration of my latest tale, which I had uploaded to my channel only moments earlier, then fell soundly asleep afterward. What an exquisite way to start the day, hounds and all. I kind of think maybe Bodhisattva guardian Deke planned it that way, knew I'd be peering out the window at that very moment. Now off to Rosenberg's to purchase another draft of amber elixir in a small paper cup, and my new sandals and jet black denims. Just woke up, looked out my window, and Watson wrote, "I'm in awe of your calm and fortitude and courage." So I replied, "Thank you for those encouraging words, Watson. I am fully aware of my stunning inner strength, and I awe myself as a result. I'm called to a great mission, and I could never shrink from that. After two sweet little pups have given me so much love and joy, I owe it to them not to wallow in grief, depression, or fear. For if I ever have that golden chance to save their lives, I will need to be in tip-top condition, both physically and mentally, to get there. I can't afford to be a malnourished, jittery soldier on this strange battlefield. Steadfast faith is my aegis, and courage, joy, and compassion my arsenal. The gods stand with me, all of them from every culture under Apollo's radiance. I can see why Artemis preferred hounds for companions rather than her own kind. As Apollo's twin, she is the goddess of empowerment among other great gifts. I am empowered. Twinges of fear still curse me now and then, but they are far less frequent and intense than ever before. And when some new fear knocks me down, I get right back up in record time. I suspect that's an Olympic sport in the ethereal realms. Watson wrote, "It's raining and the wind howling like a mofo up here." So I replied, "Been damp and cold here too, but not so rainy or windy." A lot of drizzle on and off today. You should see me listening to Marshall narrate my latest tale. I pace the floor, hanging on to every word, inflection, and tone of voice, dissecting my own ideas and prose. Did I say it right? Did he say it right? How will it strike the ear of my listeners? I am learning more about myself in so doing. I listen to each reading more than once, say 3 or 4 rounds, one of which sessions I pretend I'm a stranger hearing a Zeke tale for the first time. What comes through is pretty intense and with a lot of heart. I make what at first glance seems too trivial to write about into something shockingly profound. It makes a person stop and think. Marshall seems to be enjoying the heck out of reading my stories. He's become a partner to my adventures, as you have been for so very long, Morticia. I wonder who will become the 3rd person to hop on the Brindlekin train. First class only. Choo-choo. Subject, another kick in the gut. And it's always going to be that way for the foreseeable future whenever I see the Brindlekin, and I did earlier this evening, for I heard them bark right outside. Not that I was sure it was them until I peered out the window to see that, yes, indeed, there they were, while their master rummaged through the trash bin. He was dressed in a floppy dark gray hat and a rainbow-splashed jacket. He didn't look up, and I backed away immediately, not wanting to make eye contact or even let him know I'm home. My heart tugged to rush downstairs and sweep the darling hounds into my arms, but Deke's a monster, and I harbor fury against him for his abusive, neglectful treatment of Flacco and Lucky. How could anyone ever get tired of these 2 angels and regard them as an obstacle to a happier life? So I remained upstairs and pretended to watch another video to stay my hand from running outside and slamming him to the ground. They were gone a few minutes later. This morning, as I sat on a doorstep sipping coffee, Scampy strolled by and said, "Hi, Zeke," in passing. She rarely stops, but continued to scurry along, so I hardly had a moment to realize who it was by the time she was about to turn up Noe Street and disappear. But just before she did, I snapped out of my own thoughts, looked up at her diminishing figure, and called out, "Hey, good morning." Her sudden appearance caused me to speculate on how my relationship with other vagrants who know and hang out with Deke will change. Will they get sucked into his hateful gossip and start to attack me, or will they know he's fucked up and I did all I could to help with the doggies? Will they urge Deke to take better care of his charges, maybe help out with blankets and dog sitting? I'm counting on Boulevard Joe to bring that about, though I'm afraid he may do nothing at all, not even urge him to stop feeding them chicken bones. But I do know that sicking the cops on Deke put the fear of God in him, so to speak, and thus could coerce him to treat the pooches kindly at all times so they won't be taken away. Perhaps they should be picked up by animal control, as that would get them off the streets and probably into a loving home. One thing is clear to me. He must do this on his own. My allowance did nothing to improve the doggie's lot. He spent it all foolishly on expensive speakers, shoes, and other items, can you say drugs, all of which would be gone several days later. Were they stolen, as he always claims, or did he sell or trade them, as I suspect? Never mind, it's irrelevant anyway, and it looks to me like he does very well for himself without my financial boost. He told me more than once he can get all the dog food he needs from SPCA donations, so what he needs to do is focus on the pups, be loving to them, stop the mistreatment and neglect, provide them with blankets, sweaters, food, and many hugs and kind words. But will he? I can only pray and hope, for it's completely out of my hands at this point. Geez, somebody just hollered yo outside, though it wasn't Deke. I jump out of my skin whenever I hear that call, which everyone and his uncle uses for a catch-all greeting on the streets. I have come to despise that word more than any other. He is the product of a cruel upbringing that followed him into adulthood and to the West Coast. The curtain fell swiftly on that last act, Watson? The one entitled Playing Homeless with the Pups? For it lasted briefly, about 2 months, before the SFPD swooped down on me and demanded I remove the tent. Along with Deke's growing verbal abuse and threats that forced my hand to thrust him away. It was all shockingly abrupt, as if the entire Castro suddenly ganged up on me. And it was only 5 months prior to that, when the building manager drove the dogs back onto the streets 24/7, and now the weather's cold and damp, being November, and I fear Deke lets them shiver nights on the rude sidewalk with little solace or warmth. Strange to admit, it's a great relief to no longer have him around to rack my nerves, while at the same time a sorrow to lose the pups, and with that their sanctuary of warmth, safety, and joy. Damned if I do, and damned if I don't. The agony and the ecstasy. Whether they're with me in my cozy room or out there on the harsh streets, it's always both curse and blessing, though since it must be that way no matter what, I'd immensely prefer they still have safe harbor here than remain outdoors, though I'd have to put up with more of their master's vile behavior. Though new sneakers have finally arrived, I cannot bring myself to toss out the old ragged pair, because they got that way, from Lucky's playful chomping down on the heels whenever we went for a walk. Nor can I bring myself to cover up my splintery floor with fresh newspaper and throw rugs to make my room more cozy and neat, not without the doggies around, for a chunk of my heart was torn away when the pups were too, and knowing they're out there in the cold without respite, I cannot possibly seek more than limited comfort just for myself. So here I sit, safe and secure in my humble little cave, with a tiny heater to keep me warm and toasty, while my beloved Brindlekin suffer the bone-chilling dampness outside, and their master's sporadic tantrums. My room is now more prison cell than monk's retreat. Plus, I've been suffering a bout of acid reflux these past several days, which makes me cough uncontrollably for an hour or so when I lay down at night. Since whenever I'm horizontal, the acid creeps up my throat and burns and tickles the esophagus. It feels like bronchitis, though it isn't. My condition is improving, though, as I've started to sup earlier instead of around 10 or 11 p.m., but I'm sure the reflux is also psychosomatic, due to stress caused by the meanness of certain people over many months and loss of the dog's sweet company. Tomorrow I get my COVID/Omicron booster and flu shots, thank God. And it was only this afternoon I realized it's also the day of our midterm elections. So here it is again, the agony and the ecstasy. Damned if I vote, and damned if I don't.